Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay. I'm just letting everyone in. We'll start in just a minute or two. All right. Hello, can anyone hear me? Feel free to chime in and shout your welcomes if you can. If not, send a chat message.
Hello, Aaron. I'm here. Can you hear you fine?
My volume was off, so can I get someone else to confirm if they can hear me now?
Hi, Arun. This is Arun.
Hey, thank you. How are y'all doing this morning? All right. I apologize for the late start. Hopefully this won't be a recurring problem, but sometimes my network is flaky here. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started, and just mute while you're not speaking, if anyone can mute, and send messages either in the Slack channel, the general TestWizardry Slack channel if you're in there, or go ahead and send a chat here in Zoom. If someone is willing to volunteer to monitor the Zoom channel right now and help me out, just let me know if there's a questions or a technical problem. That would be great. So if it's someone who's on the Slack channel or whatnot, rather than having everyone try and vie for attention or having me try to monitor all the chat messages constantly, just feel free to interrupt me. I have a volunteer, someone who will say, yes, I will monitor the chat and kind of be a moderator. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone now then, and then start with the class. I hear a little bit of background noise, sounds like children, which is great. My children will be here shortly as well. And I guess I'll start my video for a second just so you can see me. Hi, I'm Aaron Evans. I'm going to be conducting this class, and this is just something that started off as bedtime stories with my own children, actually. If you've ever read a book, like we call them choose your own adventure books here, where it's a story where you make choices, and you know, if you draw the sword from the stone, go to page 50. If you leave it there as directed, go to page 20. Something like this, kind of an old school pre-computer game type of thing. And I grew up long enough ago that the first computer games I played were text adventure games. So the idea was for me to, I have other training classes that I've done, and I've had situations where people will, you know, where there's examples where, you know, an employee has a salary and a name and an age and things like that, or maybe another one, a hospital has patients, and patients might be admitted and they might have a diagnosis. And these are the types of programming things that you see in textbooks. And while I'm sure, you know, there are people who find interesting, you know, students, employees, patients, those type of scenarios, and they're easy to understand, I thought we could take something and add a little bit more spice to it, and hence the idea of adding Harry Potter. So the idea is that we will create a Harry Potter based game, so you can be a witch or a wizard and explore going to Hogwarts Academy and the tasks and challenges that will go along with that, all as part of a game a very simple game, grant you, but one that will teach you the basics of programming and of test automation and of continuous delivery. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the first step, and I'll introduce the Java programming language. And so today we're going to go over just kind of a quick overview of Java. And let me bring up my PowerPoint, because we all love PowerPoint, right? Oops, I'm at the end of the list. Now you've seen it all backwards. So TestWizardry is just the name I came up with, just to have something to hang it on so you can say, yeah, this is the TestWizardry class. What are we going to cover? Starting off today and probably for the next couple days will be core Java programming, learning how to set up your Java environment, how to run and compile and write simple programs, learning the basics of the Java programming language. And then the next step is just to make sure that everyone has a basic programming experience, we'll jump into Selenium. And this is my expertise. I've been working with Selenium almost since the start, since around 2006, 2007, when I first heard of it. My profession is in software testing, test automation, and I've spent several years working with a variety of companies, helping them to improve their testing tools, create better software that has fewer bugs and can run faster. And Selenium is one of those major tools that I've used to do it. And I worked at a company called Sauce Labs, which is kind of the Selenium company. There's quite a few other companies that offer those services, but for several years at Sauce Labs, my job was to help people who are using the Sauce Labs tool to write their Selenium tests, to improve their test automation frameworks, to run their tests in parallel, to essentially optimize their testing process as a solution architect. And I've also done independent consulting, and that's what I do right now. I do the same thing on an individual basis with a few select clients. I help them build their testing tools and frameworks and do a little bit of web development as well. So along with Selenium, Selenium is an automation tool that allows you to drive the browser, along with its companion system, Appium, which is based on the same WebDriver protocol as Selenium, which Appium allows you to test mobile apps, or rather to automate mobile apps, where Selenium allows you to do it for web apps. But along with Selenium or Appium, you need a framework, a test tool to more efficiently describe your tests. And so what we're going to use in this example is TestNG, which is a Java-based testing tool. And what it is it's a test runner. It allows you to define test cases and execute them. An alternative to TestNG would be JUnit. Other programming languages have similar ones. In Ruby, they have RSpec. In JavaScript, they have Mocha and Jasmine and a variety of others. So there's two parts to testing, really. One is writing the tests, and two is accomplishing the tasks to write the test. And Selenium is what we'll use for testing the web-facing components. Now, jumping ahead here to the last element, number 8 here on the curriculum, there's also testing the backend. And we won't go into too much backend, although we will talk about unit testing, and we'll access the database directly. But we also want to talk about web services, because behind websites and mobile apps, there is these REST API web services. And we'll talk about using, consuming the web services, and writing tests with them. Now, a lot of people have used a framework called REST Assured. I actually prefer to just use a testing runner like JUnit or TestNG, along with a simpler library. We'll discuss that more later. That's going to happen in November. Really, what we're going to do is probably just go through 1, 2, 3, and part of 4, maybe a little bit of 6 for this 2-week course. It's going to be 1 hour every day, same time, or every weekday, Monday through Friday, which is 10 o'clock my time, Mountain Time. And we'll just go through this a couple days, getting the core Java basics going, and then we'll introduce Selenium and TestNG and get to writing some tests. So we're going to start off by building a simple command line interface for Java for our Java game, and then we'll develop a web-based interface to use with Selenium. All right. In November, we will go into more advanced Selenium techniques and topics. We will talk more about building a robust test automation framework, including page object pattern, parallelization, data-driven tests, and so forth. We may get some of that in this with this 2-week period, depending on how quickly we move. And then we'll talk more about continuous delivery, deploying using Jenkins and AWS. And we're also going to build the web interface, which isn't going to be very glamorous on this. It's going to be primarily text-based. We'll find some pictures of Harry Potter and Hagrid and Dumbledore and all these characters and things that we can put into our text-based game to give it a little bit of flavor. But the main idea here is that we're just using Harry Potter as a way to describe things in a more interesting way and create this very simple game to give us an objective for what to accomplish. And that's our goal, is we're going to try and build this adventure game based on Harry Potter and have a little fun with it, hopefully. Hopefully it'll be a little less dry than I talked about the employee or student or patient type of normal business relationships. And the reason why is, well, maybe you work in healthcare or education or HR or something like that. These are big industries, and for me, I like to get outside of my daily routine and think about things that are new, interesting. And as I said, my kids are really into Harry Potter. I've only read a couple of the books myself, so if you have more knowledge than me in Harry Potter, great, you can help add more color and flavor to this game. Our secondary goal, which might be the primary goal for some of you, is to learn software development and testing and delivery skills. We're going to do that through the development of the game, and this will be, approximately half lecture, half hands-on, with a little bit of, do your homework type work. And you'll be welcome to customize the game and the text and the pictures as well as we go along. Make it your own game, but you'll also be able to follow along as I publish day by day our improvements and modifications to the game. So if you fall behind or if you jump in late, you can always grab the source code for the latest version and work from there. Hopefully I'll have a working version each day as we go through, so that you can just pull the code from GitHub and make your modifications and do your homework on that. And lastly, I'm hoping we'll have fun. If it's not fun, go ahead and do something else. Or even if you find it useful learning and it's not fun, you can slog through it. But there's probably lots of better tutorials for doing that. All right. First thing we want to do, because this is something that will take some time, if you don't have the Java JDK, the Java Development Kit installed, first thing we want to do is download that. So you go to openjdk.java.net. And then the next thing we want to do is download and install Eclipse. Now, if you have or are familiar with another IDE, such as IntelliJ IDEA, or if you want to work from Vim or Emacs or some other tool, that's fine. I'm going to do the demonstrations in Eclipse. And part of the reason I'm doing this is because I'm used to IntelliJ IDEA, and I have another paid training course coming up with Eclipse. So part of the reason why I'm offering this course and doing it with Eclipse is because, well, I'm a bit rusty in Eclipse. So you might see me make some stupid decisions if you know Eclipse, or even if you don't, you might notice that. But I'm hoping that this will help me to improve my own skills so that when I do my training up towards the end of this month, it will be more fluid. So the free course, you're going to get me doing things maybe in a haphazard way. All right, so first of all, let's download and install JDK. Now, I sent an email out to everyone in the class, it should have been, or at least everyone who was subscribed by Friday, to download JDK and install it, as well as Eclipse. So I'm just going to briefly go through this. You just go to openjdk.java.net, or you can just search for Java download, and you'll find it. And I think this will go to, rather than the OpenJDK, whatever. So I'll go back to OpenJDK. You just want to go to download and install the version. The latest version is 15. It came out just a couple weeks ago. You can use JDK, or we'll essentially be using Java version 8, which goes back, I don't know, 10 years, maybe 8 years. So it's not going to hurt if you have an older version of Java installed, as long as it's not incredibly old. So you click on the download, you go here. If you're on Windows, you grab this zip file. If you're on Mac or on Linux. Let's take a minute now and let me see. Have I not been sharing my screen the whole time? That's okay. I was showing some slides. All right. All right. So for the sake of repetition and just to show the slides, first thing, let's download the JDK. So grab your JDK, and let's have everyone, if you can take a moment and tell me if you already have the JDK installed. That's great. Let me know. But if you don't, what we want to know is if everyone has it installed, we can just jump ahead. If not, then let's go ahead and proceed to the next step. All right, so it looks like we've got 1, 2 already installed. I'm looking at the chat. 3. Does anybody not have the JDK already installed? Let me know and we can walk through. All right, it's looking good. We'll give it just a couple more seconds here to make sure everyone has it installed. And while we're doing that, I'm curious, I'm on a Mac, but I also have a Windows VM with Parallels, so I can do demonstrations in either environment. How many people here are on a Mac or on a Windows or on Linux? Let me know in the chat. We've got 1 Windows, 1 Mac, another Windows, 3 Windows to 1 Mac so far. Windows, I don't know what WSL is. Windows, okay, so it looks like we've got the majority on Windows here. What I will do is I will go ahead and fire up Parallels and do my demonstration in Windows. And I've probably got, I don't know, a whole bunch of stuff going on here. But if everyone has the JDK installed and they're ready to go, let's also ask, does everybody have, oh, this is a messy desktop. Does everybody have Eclipse or IDE or some IDE installed? Let's check the chat for that. Okay, we've got 1 yes on Eclipse. Yes. If you've got a no to any of the IntelliJ, that's great. That works good too. Eclipse. Awesome. We'll go ahead and continue from there then. We'll be able to breeze through the setup. But just for those who haven't seen anything, what I want to do is I want to show what it looks like. You have the JDK installer. Let me see if I can get to downloads. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to try and find the downloads from here. But so once you have the JDK installed, the next thing to do is to test it out. So you can open up a command window. Let me close this thing down here. So you open your terminal on Windows. You should be able to type java-version. And if you have it, you can see here I have OpenJDK version 14.02, which, as you can see, was latest version of July 14th. So I haven't installed this in the last 2 or 3 weeks since the new JDK became available, which is fine. Like I said, anything 8+ will be fine for this class. Now, in order to get that, you also need to check your Java compiler. and it says I have Java C 1402. If you don't have that, now you can type, let me bring up the PowerShell, because I think which might not work in here. Okay, yeah, which does work in the command prompt. So in my case, it's C:/JDK1402/bin/Java. And in PowerShell, which Java C. And you can see it shows it in kind of the Unix style file format for me. Yours might say C:/JDK 1402/Java. Now, if you need to find it in your path, right? So if you put the full path, and I do Java-version here, that doesn't like that. Directory not found. Maybe this is a parallels thing. Oh, bin Java, that's what I forgot. And there's all these other tools, Java, Javadoc, whatever that go with it. Oops. Anyway, so you got java.exe. That's the file we want. Now, in order to add that to your path, so in my case, I've got this C:/JDK 1402/bin. This is the directory I want to have in my path. And if I type dir on this folder, it shows me all these files, which includes my java.exe and my javac.exe. So what I want to do is I want to grab that directory, and then I can go here. I can either open a file explorer, and then I can go to I could click on the computer, this PC. I can right click and go to properties, and then advanced system settings. And you can see here environment variables. Now, what I have here is Java Home. You could create that yourself by clicking on New, enter Java Home, and then the value here. Now, I already have that, but that's okay. Now, Java Home is C:/JDK-14.0.2/bin. That's good. And then in my path, what I have is I have these lists. I have Java Home/bin. So that's something. I grabbed the Java Home and I put the /bin on there. That was a mistake. So I want JDK-1402 with no bin on the Java Home. And then for my path, you can see I have Java Home/bin. And you would just do that by creating a new one. And this parenthesis, Java Home parenthesis, that is an environment variable on Windows. And I would do /bin. And I'm going to hit cancel instead of OK, since I already have that. And that's how you set it in your path if you don't have it. So in Java, if or rather on Windows in the command terminal, if it's not in your path, for instance, I'll simulate. There's probably an unset, right? Oh, you don't use equals. Set x Java Home, and I want to set this to specific value saved. Now, the funny thing is it's not saved to this terminal. I can do echo %Java Home %, and it's still there. But if I close this, open another command prompt, and I do echo Java Home, there's no value, right? So I can set it on the terminal temporarily. JDK 1402, like so. Now environment Java Home not defined. So if I go back to my terminal or back to my Explorer, I can also go to search. I can just search for edit system environment variables. It'll bring up right here my advanced system properties. I can click on here, and you can see my Java Home is now blank, right? I can even actually delete that. So I could go through and set it that way. I can also set it here. If I use set x Java Home, and now it was saved, and I can both see that in the terminal. Well, that's not right. Oh, that's right. It's not in this terminal, but if I open a new one, it will be. Windows really still hasn't come into the modern age of command line interfaces, which is kind of an ironic statement. Oops, Java Home. There we go. And we can go back into our Explorer view. For those of you used to the UI, I go to my properties, advanced system settings, and my Java home here is again at C:/JDK 1402. And my path includes Java home/bin. You could have set it all directly in the, you could have set in the path C:/JDK 1402 /bin right here. But we did this to be modular because now if I install a different version of Java, that version will be in the path. I won't go through that today though. All right, so now I'm here, I can type Java-version. And it's back, and I can see Java C-version as well, which is good because I need to compile it. All right, I'll go back to the chat for a second. Everyone following along, do you have Java in your path from the command line? Because the next step we're going to do is we're going to write a simple Java program from the command line. Go ahead and tell me, okay, we've got 1 yes, 2 yeses. You guys are probably all experts and you're bored of doing this part now, right? But I'm starting at the beginning for the sake of anyone who is new here. And I'm gearing this class toward beginners. Can't find the command prompt on Windows. Okay, that's good. I'll show you how to do that. So you can go here. You can just type CMD for command prompt in your search, or you can type PowerShell. PowerShell also works. PowerShell is a nicer environment, but it's harder to use. So let's stick with the simple CMD command interface. You can also go here, and I think it's under, someone help me out, accessories or utilities. I don't know. I haven't used Windows in anger in a long time. But anyway, search for CMD, or you can do Control Run. CMD works as well. I'm a command line guy from old school. I grew up with Windows, but I've been using Linux since 1997. And I've been using Mac as my primary interface for a while. So let's see. Okay, you've got the command line interface. Okay. You want to make sure if you've got Java in your path that you can run it. If not, if anyone runs into trouble with this part, don't despair. I'm not going to torture you with too much command line interface. Now, let's write our first program. You can just write Notepad or bring up whatever text editor you want, or Vim. Here, and you probably don't have Vim on Windows, but I'll use it just out of spite. So what we want to do is make the font bigger on here. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see what 18 looks like. That looks pretty good. Whoa. That doesn't look good. All right. All right, so I've got my editor open. I'll do this in Notepad as well. But to write a program in Java, first thing is everything in Java is object-oriented. So you want to create a class. And we're going to call this hello. Yeah, we'll just call this hello. Well, no, let's go traditional. Hello world. So it's class hello world. Now the name of your file needs to match the name of your class. So, and Java is a C-like programming language. So you're going to use curly braces. It's case sensitive. You use semicolons on the end of the line. White space is not important like it is in some other languages like Python. But so you have hello world is the name of your file and the name of your class. Now I haven't actually saved this file yet, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. Hello world.java, and you can see that down at the bottom of my screen. I'm writing or saving hello world.java. And just to show how that goes, oops, I'll bring up Notepad. And actually, I'm going to have to drop back here. Okay, I'm in my home directory, vim hello world.java. My file comes up. And in Notepad, I can go ahead and open the same file. And I need to go to my home directory, this PC, C:. It's tricky because my C: isn't my actual root. Aaron Evans. And then where is it? Scroll down. I'm not seeing my file. Let me again see. I should have an Eclipse workspace. C: users, Aaron Evans. Eclipse workspace. Why don't I see my file? Wow. Well, it's here. Maybe that's just Notepad being perverse. All right. So I'm in Notepad for now. And now every class needs to have methods, right? Well, technically they don't need methods. A class is an object-oriented structure. You have a class of objects. One class we'll talk about is the class wizard, and you're going to create a character who is a wizard. And a wizard will have methods like cast spell or brew potion or some other things like that. But every program, every executable in Java needs one class with one entry point, and that entry point is called main, and it's your main function, right? And main looks like this, but there's some other stuff in here. I'm just going to put it down as boilerplate. It says, or it should be public static void main. Now, public, your class should also be public as well. It doesn't need to be in this case, but we'll do it to follow the convention and not develop any bad habits. Static means that it's unchanging. There's only one instance of this main function or method in the hello world class because it's the entry point. You don't want a program that can start up from multiple entry points. So Java enforces you can only have one entry point per application. If you have a separate entry point, and by definition it's a separate application, although it may use some of the same library classes. And void is the return type. So if you come from a C background, you might have a method that looks like this, void main or int main, because it returns a integer error code. I'm probably going to keep hitting that over and over again. Anyway, public static void main lowercase. You might see here public class hello world. I capitalize this. It doesn't need to be capitalized, but by convention, Java classes are capitalized and methods are lowercase. And you can see here it has camel case. And why it's called camel case, because it goes up and down, hump, hump, hump. So whatever that's just a Java convention. It doesn't matter, but your file name, at least on other systems other than Windows that are also case sensitive, it's important. And then you have these parentheses. Inside the parentheses, you pass the arguments. I won't go into that now, but I will later. What you have is you have string, square, and then you have square brackets, which is on the same keys usually as your curly brackets, just without the shift. And by convention, this is called args. So this is what your basic empty class that does nothing looks like. And I'll go back into Vim and show you my hello world.java. That looks good. Now, we need this class to do something, or or it does nothing. So don't worry about the syntax here if you don't understand it. Java is a language known for boilerplate, and by boilerplate I mean writing a lot of extra stuff that doesn't matter. In this case, what we want to do is we want to print something. And because Java loves to be explicit, we need to have system out println, stands for print line. And in another language, they might just use print or echo or some other simple syntax, and you're good to go. In Java, we've got a lot of code. We just want it to say hello world, just like that. Now let's go ahead and save that program. And you can see I keep switching back and forth because Windows and yeah, I'm not going to mess with Notepad anymore. It thinks that it's not there. But if I did Notepad, hello world, it has everything there, including the print. All right. So now I have my Notepad file open, or my plain text Java file. This is Java source code, hence the .java description. Now, next thing we want to do is we want to compile that. We use Java C, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to CLS, and I'm going to cat hello world.java so we can see my file here. What I want to use, I use Java C, the Java compiler, to compile this to Java bytecode. So I say Java C hello world.java, and it says nothing. That's fine. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a class called TestWizardry, and I'm just doing a little bit of cleanup, just so it's easier. And then I can go to my TestWizardry directory, and now I have these two files. I have hello world.java and hello world.class. The .class is the compiled version of the file. But let's go ahead, and now that I have a .class, a compiled bytecode, I can type Java hello world, just like that. No .java, no .class, and it will say, very unsurprisingly and perhaps unremarkably, hello world. But this is the first step in programming, and what it does here, it shows us that, yes, I have my Java compiler and my Java runtime installed. They're working. They're in my path. I successfully compiled a simple hello world program. But let's talk a little bit more about this. I'm going to shift back to my PowerPoint. And just so that it's on the record, let me close the chat. Here's the first slide. Here's the second slide with the curriculum I talked about, core Java programming. That's what we're going over for the next few days. Next couple days, we'll also be covering core Java, and then we'll introduce Selenium. And here's our goals: to develop an adventure game based on Harry Potter, and we're learning our software development skills by doing it, and download. So let's talk about Java. And this is really kind of a filler slide because I was going to talk about Java while you were downloading and installing it. Java is a widely used programming language. It was at the top of the list for a while as the most common. I think that's slipping now, depending on who you pull. But it's still a common programming language. It's a high performance programming language. It does not have the raw performance power of C and C++, but it's faster than popular interpreted programming languages like Python, Ruby, or whatever. Comparable, maybe has a slight edge over the Microsoft runtime in C#. But I don't want to get into any flame wars or arguments about what language. The main reason, oops, I've got a typo here. The main reason that I decided to use Java is, number one, it's high demand, and this is what my next class is. So I'm treating you guys as kind of a warm-up to help me to deliver the content. It's cross-platform. So a lot of languages are like this now, that there's a cross-platform runtime or interpreter or whatever. But when Java came out in the 90s, this wasn't the case. And so that was really kind of revolutionary. You could compile C or C++ to individual platforms, but each individual platform had their own quirks, their own compilers, and so forth. But because the Java has this shared runtime where all Java bytecode can run, all you had to do was write a Java bytecode, a compiler and a runtime, and then your code was portable across systems. It actually took a while to make that happen, and by then there were a lot of other programming languages in comparison. But Java really pushed for this. And because it's cross-platform, we can write code on Windows, Mac, and Linux and share our code and share actually our binaries across systems. It's fairly easy to understand. Some other languages like Python and Ruby may at first appear easier to understand, but there's sometimes hidden magic in there or tricks that if you don't know will make it a little harder. Java also has a large ecosystem of open source tools, including it's the primary language for Selenium. Selenium has branched out and is available on a variety of different languages. Pretty much most popular languages have a Selenium client interpretation, although the Selenium server is still implemented in Java. It's a good language for teams. Part of the reason for that is its object-oriented nature and its simple syntax. Although, as you can see, Java, or as you'll see, Java has a lot of keywords compared to some other languages. But it has a fairly straightforward, almost boring syntax and structure, which makes it easy for teams to work with because, in honesty, you're going to the lowest common denominator of people that anyone should be able to understand it. It's a little more explicit and verbose. Well, some might say a lot more explicit and verbose than other languages, but that means there's fewer surprises, fewer opportunities for optimization and writing really dense few lines of code accomplish a lot like you can in some other languages, but that also means that it's easier to debug and see what's going on, even though it might be less boring, or it might be more boring and less exciting to work with. And that's why I think other languages have taken hold, that they're also cross-platform, but they're also a little more flexible, a little more dynamic. And while Java is adapting to meet some of that, people like new shiny things, and they like some of the new features that other languages have that Java has kind of shied away from in the interest of keeping things basic. That makes it good for teams. And because of those reasons, there's still a big market demand. There's a huge code base of Java in existence. Java may become the next COBOL, right? In 20 years, there might be very few Java programmers, but still a lot of Java programs in existence. But for now, Java might be slightly on the wane, but there's still a big demand. And so we're using it. I may do future versions of this class, highlighting other languages like JavaScript and Python, for example, or whatever else is popular in the future. But we'll get a taste of JavaScript coming up when we do web development. All right, so talking a little bit more about Java and the Java ecosystem, and because we got a late start, we're probably not going to get too much further in the code today, but just talk, there's several parts to Java, and you might not think about these separately. There's the Java programming language itself, where we write the code. This is the Java programming language. It is a C-like programming language. And by that, I mean semicolons and braces, case sensitive, white space insensitive, based on the same general comment or context, going all the way back to ALGOL, one of the first languages that actually the language was written and it was used for teaching programming before there was even a way to execute ALGOL. And ALGOL stands for algorithm language, I guess. That it was clear and concise and could express algorithms in a way that could be understood by students without having to compile them in theory. So very popular branch of programming languages, going back to ALGOL, to C, to C++, to Java, and JavaScript, and even languages like Perl and Python, or Perl and PHP. And many languages share common syntax or phrasings because of this. Even languages like Python and Ruby that are a little bit different in their syntax still share a lot of the base features, things like using parentheses for arguments, some statements like if, then, else, so forth. So beside the Java programming languages, there's the Java virtual machine where it runs on. And we'll take just a minute to look at the Java bytecode that runs on the virtual machine. And then there's the tools, the compiler, the runtime. The Java runtime is the Java virtual machine. The JDK, or the Java development kit, includes both the runtime, and from the command line perspective, that's the Java command. The Java command launches an application and starts a Java runtime for that to run in. The Java compiler, which we just saw, and other tools, Profiler, Archive for Jar, JavaDoc, a whole bunch of other things that we're not going to go into at this time. As well as there's the Java ecosystem. And when you talk about Java, you might be talking about, if you're looking for a job where they're using Java, there's other things you need to know. You need to know one of the IDEs, Eclipse or IntelliJ. You need to know Maven for creating your project structure. But also, there's this Maven repository, Maven Central, where it's a huge resource of shared applications. And so using Maven or Gradle, which is it uses Groovy, but it still uses the Maven repository. It's a different syntax for doing the same thing. Most Java projects are built using Maven repositories and dependency and project structure. So you'll need to use an IDE. You'll need to be comfortable using Maven and accessing code from Maven, which we will get into when we start using Selenium. And then you're going to have other tools like Spring, which is a huge family of frameworks that people write applications in Java. Hibernate is one that probably fell by the wayside for a while now. And Selenium itself, of course, is an open source project in Java. All right. Yeah, we don't need to go into this here. This just talks more about the Java compiler and virtual machine. The JVM, the virtual machine, interprets and compiles the bytecode just in time, and it allows you to be, cross-platform. Java language, we've talked about this as well. I'll just show the slide. Now we've done our hello world. So we'll stop there. After, I just want to show you one more thing. Oh, that's another project I've got going on. We don't need to look at that. We need to go back into Windows. So you see the Java code, and I'm going to type CLS here, right? I can see hello world.java. That's my source code, and I've got hello world.class. And you can see there's a bunch of funny characters in there. You can see some text here, right? Java lang system out. That's probably the system out. Print. So we've got print stream. Hello world. We've got a musical smiley face, gender symbol, all these weird symbols. Now, those symbols aren't actually, this is just how the command interprets it, right? If we look at it in Vim, it looks a little different. The terminal doesn't look, we've got all these control structures. But while it has, some text in here that makes sense, it also has this binary stuff. This is the compiled bytecode that we're seeing. It doesn't make any sense. All these up arrow caret structures point to control characters the same way that all these, non-ASCII characters, the smiley faces and clubs and hearts and all these things represent non-ASCII characters just because the terminal doesn't know how to display them. There's no real display equivalent for this binary data. But the Java the Java runtime knows how to interpret these binary commands in an efficient way. And it actually ignores most of the text written out here. This is for debugging. And that's how it compiles the program. So that's as far as we're going to get today. Hopefully everyone was able to download and install, it sounds like, the Java JDK, and that you're able to run or compile and run a simple hello world program in Java. So let's take a minute and I'll go look at the chat again. Oh, Windows subsystem for Linux was WSL. All right. So is everyone up to this point already? And does anyone feel like that they've gotten something out of this first baby step? Or was this something that you all knew and you're just waiting for the good stuff? Feel free to reply in the chat, or you can also talk out loud. I'm not sure how many people we have in here, maybe a dozen. All right, any comments? Tomorrow, what we're going to do is we're going to take our Hello World program. We're going to talk about loops, conditional statements, for loops, if statements, talk about expressions, different types of variables, strings, integers, floats, doubles, and we're going to change our Hello World to, of course, something a little more interesting. We're going to start off by doing a test wizardry thing. I might actually I was gonna say I might actually give you a demo of that now, but I'll save that for tomorrow since our hour is just about up. And I know we had a little bit of a delay, 5 minutes or so while I was getting online. And I apologize for that. Tomorrow we'll leave, well, we're gonna do one more thing with the command line, and then we'll leave it behind, and we'll primarily be working in Eclipse for the next couple days, exploring Java, the programming language, in more detail, getting used to using the debugger in Eclipse, and writing a program that allows us to send in our application to Hogwarts Academy. You'll do things like you'll tell your name, your age, and so forth. And then you'll get that invitation with your inventory list that you need to get these books and a cauldron and robes and an owl and a wand and that sort of thing. And then the main part of our game will be to whisk you off to Diagon Alley to buy those items, and be sure to catch the Hogwarts Express and arrive in the Great Hall in time to join one of the great houses of Hogwarts, Gryffindor or Slytherin or Ravenclaw. What's the last one? Hufflepuff. And we'll for instance, the Sorting Hat will have an algorithm based on random number generator that will sort you into one of those houses. And that's going to be the first part of our game. We create that as a text-based game that you can run from the command line or from the console within Eclipse, and then we'll implement it as a web app and test it using Selenium. And we'll talk about object-oriented structures and classes and objects the day after tomorrow. Thanks everyone for joining, and we will see you tomorrow, same time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Aaron.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, great stuff. Thanks.
All right, thanks. And by the way, I'm going to be posting the videos and the source code online. So the videos will be on YouTube, I think, and the source code will be on GitHub for everyone to see, and you can share with friends. I know a lot of people can't make it to the class on time. Looks like we've got one person waiting still. So there will be people following along. If you can't make it to the class at this time, you can watch the videos. And take care and happy coding. Bye.
Thank you.